So I'd like to share a story with you that I refer to as the Macedonian call. My father had received a diagnosis that he was very sick with pancreatic cancer. I got on a plane, flew back to New Jersey, and spent a little time with him, a couple of days. He got very serious, went into the hospital, and in about 7 or 8 days, he passed away. I flew my wife back. There was a funeral scheduled. My siblings flew in. We had the funeral, and then to get away from the situation a little bit, I said to my wife, let's go get a hotel in Bordentown. And I borrowed my brother's car, and we went there. The next morning, it was Sunday. I'd looked up in the phone book for a church in the area and found one in Wrightstown. And then I said to my wife when I got up, I said, I want to go for a walk. So I stepped out onto Route 130 there in Bordentown. When I stepped onto the street, I just glanced across the highway, and there was a diner. It was called the Macedonian Diner. That caught my attention, and I went down the road, started walking, and when I got back, I went back into the hotel. We had lots of time before the church service was later, and I asked my wife, I said, is there anything else you want to do? And she said, yeah, let's go to the Columbus Flea Market. Now, the Columbus Flea Market is a very large flea market. It's out in the middle of an agricultural area, a lot of cornfields, and kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so we drove there in my brother's car, and we pulled into the parking lot, and we pulled up to a parking space, and something rather interesting took place as we stepped out of the car. When I opened the door, I felt the manifestation of an angel. Now, I had experienced this before. I was familiar with it. I knew what that was. I didn't say anything to my wife, but it really caused me to, perk up my spiritual ears and eyes and be aware of what was taking place there. So we walked on into the flea market area, and it wasn't long. I was drawn to, there were crowded people and wide aisles, but there were these 3 women, and they were walking the other way along the side. So I pulled my wife along by the hand and kind of moved in their direction and kind of got up behind them. And then it came into my spirit, I got to say something. I got to get the attention of these ladies. And I was just waiting on the Lord what that might be. Well, we passed by something, a set of dolls on a shelf, and I simply made the statement. I said, that's a nice doll. When I spoke, the woman in the back turned around, a much senior lady, older woman. She took my hand, and she put a business card in my hand, like she was going to shake my hand, but she put a business card in my hand. Tears just immediately began to stream down her face. And then she looked at my wife, and she began to speak to us. We didn't understand the words that she was speaking. And I thought, wow, what is going on here? Here we are. We're 3,000 miles from home. We are in a flea market in the middle of a cornfield. And here this is taking place with this woman. Well, I looked at the card, and I put it in my pocket. The other women, one of them spoke some English. They were Spanish. And we just visited for a little bit, and then we parted. Well, we went on to the church service that we had looked up in the yellow pages and sat through service. At the end of that, we were kneeled in our pew praying. I pulled that card out of my pocket, and I said to my wife, I said, I feel something about this. I said, you want to go to church again? She said, sure. So we went out to the car, and I pulled the card out. There was a name on the card, Jhon Rios. He was the pastor of a church in Trenton, New Jersey. And so I called and spoke to Brother Rios, and this is what he said to me. He said, please come. The Lord is sending you. I said, okay. So we grabbed a bite to eat. I think it was an afternoon service. We found the location. We walked in. It was a Spanish congregation. So he asked me to speak, and he interpreted. It was near the end of my message that I made the statement that the Lord was going to confirm his word with them, with signs following right now. And I handed the microphone back to Brother Rios. He made an appeal, and you know, I was kind of, now I'm watching, I'm wanting to see what the Lord is going to do there in these very interesting circumstances. And I didn't see anything, I didn't think. But I saw the woman again in the back of the room, the woman that we spoke to in the market. So I said to Pastor Rios, I said, this woman back here, she spoke to us in the market, and we didn't understand the words that she was using. And he said to me, that's my mother. We came from the country of Colombia 29 years ago. He signaled her up, and she only spoke Spanish, and he spoke to her. And this is what she said. And when he inquired, what was it that you said to them in the market? And she said, when I saw you, I felt the power of God, and to say to you, we need you, come help us. And it was in that moment I flashed back to what I saw when I stepped onto the road that morning of the Macedonian diner. And of course, anybody spending time in the scripture, to me, the Macedonian diner said the Macedonian call. The dream that the Apostle Paul had, where he saw a man saying, I need you, come help us. And so, wow, this was so surreal. Then the woman said to her son, the pastor, I have not had a liberty to speak in tongues ever since we have come from Colombia. Would you have this woman pray for me? About that time, my wife reached over, placed her hand on her shoulder, and began to pray. And the woman just raised her hands and began to speak in tongues. It was then that I said to Pastor Rios, this is the sign that God is confirming to you the words that were spoken this day. It was such a surreal moment and unique situation to be so far away from home, and then to have an angelic encounter in a parking lot, leading us into a scenario, just affirming to us, this is my hand, I am leading you. Cooperate with me, work with me. I truly want to be a person who is led of the Spirit of God. I know that it's been many years back now that when I begin to engage in a place of prayer and communion with God on a daily basis, it brought such an elevation of sensitivity to hear the voice of God and to be led by the voice of God in my everyday life, not in just church services, in my everyday life outside of the four walls of the church. God bless you.